West Africa, a land rich in culture, history, and resources, was once deeply ensnared by French colonial desires. As the tricolour flag unfurled across West African territories, a new era, promising prosperity, began. Yet, beneath this veneer lay a sinister motive: the systematic plunder of West Africa's riches. From Dakar to Niamey, French colonial administrators took charge, reshaping economies for France's benefit. The vast fertile lands saw crops like groundnuts and cocoa being cultivated, not for Africans, but to satiate European markets. In Mali, the Niger River, once a symbol of life and trade, saw its waters exploited for French profit. The rich mines of Burkina Faso were drained, with their gold glittering not for Africans, but for French coffers. France's policy was clear: keep West Africa economically subservient. But the African spirit, resilient as ever, hoped for freedom and self-determination. Independence movements began to surge, fueled by tales of exploitation and dreams of sovereignty. By the 1960s, the winds of change blew as one by one, West African nations claimed their freedom. Yet, as the tricolour was lowered, its shadow persisted, with France maintaining economic control through neo-colonial strategies. The newly independent states found themselves trapped in economic agreements heavily skewed in France's favour. The French franc, and later the CFA franc, was imposed, linking West African economies directly to France's. Through this monetary control, France manipulated trade, prices, and fiscal policies of these fledgling nations. High tariffs on West African exports ensured they remained uncompetitive on the global stage. France also monopolized major industries, from oil in Nigeria to uranium in Niger. These neo-colonial tactics ensured that while politically free, West Africa remained economically chained. Dependency on French imports crippled local industries. African leaders who dared oppose this neo-colonial grip faced covert operations, political pressure, or even exile. It wasn't just resources. The best of African talent, lured by promises of a better life, migrated to France. This brain drain further weakened West Africa's capacity to break free. Yet, with each passing year, the murmurs of discontent grew louder. Scholars, activists, and even some politicians began to challenge the French stranglehold. They spoke of a free West Africa, not just in political terms but in economic freedom. They envisioned a self-sufficient region, trading with the world on its own terms. Slowly, regional blocs began to emerge, seeking to diminish France's overbearing influence. Organizations like ECOWAS aimed to foster economic cooperation and growth, independent of neo-colonial constraints. Yet, the tentacles of French influence were deep, with multinational corporations and political lobbyists ensuring their interests remained safeguarded. Corruption, unfortunately, became a tool, with France often supporting leaders who protected its interests. This neo-colonial dance was a treacherous one, as African leaders navigated between national interests and French pressure. But the new generation, educated and global in its outlook, was less willing to be subdued. Protests erupted in capitals from Bamako to Lomé, with the youth demanding true economic emancipation. Leaders like Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso emerged as beacons of hope. Sankara's vision of a self-reliant Burkina Faso threatened the established neo-colonial order. But his tragic assassination, under suspicious circumstances, highlighted the lengths to which shadowy interests would go to protect their grip on Africa. As the years rolled on, the battle between neo-colonial control and true independence raged. Each economic policy, each trade deal became a battleground. The media, once controlled by colonial narratives, began to reflect a more pan-African view. Documentaries, exposés, and investigative reports shed light on the dark corners of neo-colonialism. France, seeing its influence wane, attempted various strategies, from diplomacy to covert operations. But the will of a continent, united in its vision, proved formidable. As the 21st century progressed, West Africa began rewriting its economic story. The chains of neo-colonialism, once ironclad, began to rust and weaken. A new dawn emerged, as West Africa moved towards a future shaped by its own hands. France, once the puppet master, had to adapt to a new global order. The narrative of West Africa will no longer be one of subservience but of resilience. No longer would the tricolour's shadow loom large over West Africa. Instead, the vibrant hues of African flags, the rhythms of its beats, and the dreams of its people would define its path. And as the Sahel sun sets, it leaves behind not the darkness of exploitation, but the hope of a brighter, self-determined tomorrow. If the recent events in Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso and Mali are anything to go by, it is that this new West Africa is breaking away from its colonial past to a future of its own making.
There is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.